Hello, friend. This is episode 200 of the podcast. What? Oh my goodness. I am so excited about episode 200. I can't believe we're here. I can't believe it's happening. It's episode 200, and I'm so proud of myself, so excited that you've been with me on this journey to living a more healthy and happy and epic lifestyle. And I'm just overjoyed. I'm just so overjoyed right now in this moment. And I just want to breathe and take it in because this was a podcast that I had a lot of nerves to start, and I started it. And I'm just so excited that I keep showing up for myself. I keep showing up for you and pouring into you all of the knowledge that I've gained on my journey and hoping it helps you to up level your health and your habits and your lifestyle so that you can feel more epic in your life. And I want to say thank you for being with me on this journey. I couldn't have done it without you. I'm so excited and honored for your attention each week that you tune in to this podcast. So thank you. Thank you so much. This has been such a delight and such a joy of mine to evolve in this way, show up in this way. I love educating. I love teaching. I love talking about all the ways that I experience life and things that I've learned along the way. So this is just such a moment for me. So thank you for being here. And so for the topic for today's podcast, I really wanted to dive into something that we can create for ourselves that can be our next superpower. And really, that is the power we have when we implement a habit, when we implement a routine that really elevates our life. And so who better than to talk about this, right, is one of the experts in the area is James Clear. You know, James Clear is the author of Atomic Habits. And this book, according to Forbes magazine, earlier this couple months ago, had talked about how 20 million copies of this book have been sold since its publication 5 years ago, and is really a book that really breaks down how habits are formed. And he gives a nice outline and a great way to look at implementing habits. And I just think his wisdom that he shares in his newsletter is just packed full of excellent words to live by and really elevates, I know, my lifestyle. And I often post James Clear's quotes inside of the Epic You membership to the ladies because I just find them so motivating, so inspiring. And he really is a great deep thinker that presents information in a way that really resonates with my brain. So upon reading his book, it's found it helpful in the strategies that he's given to implement habits. And I'm also going to talk about what I've learned along the way in implementing habits as well. So one of his quotes that he's really well known for is, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." And if you've ever watched any of his talks, you know, he talks a lot about habits, but what he's really getting down to and what he really says in his talks is like, I talk about habits, but I'm really talking about the systems in your life. Because when you have the systems set up, the habits just are more easy to do. And I love how he breaks down in his book, you know, the 4 principles he finds that is good for following to implement a habit, right? So he's really focusing on the system. He talks about making it obvious. He talks about making it attractive. He talks about the habit when you're trying to implement a new habit is to make it easy, right? Doing a hard thing is much harder. How can you make it easy or easier? And he also talks about making it satisfying. Because one thing we know about habits is when they are satisfying, we want to keep doing them. Right? There's an element of reward. There's an element of like, that was satisfying. I want to keep doing it. So I really appreciate his framework. I really appreciate his work and his body of work that he continues to pour and put out into the universe for all of us to gain expertise on. But that quote in particular, I want to break down a little bit more and give some more structure on how to implement good habits in your life. Now, before I do that, I wanted to come back to why this is so important. When I first started this podcast, it was called Drink Less Lifestyle. And I loved that name because drinking less, no matter where you're at, right? Just by drinking less, 1 glass less a week, a couple of glasses less a week, whatever it is, drinking less, you are ultimately benefiting your life. You're benefiting your health, you're benefiting your relationships, including the relationship with yourself, right? We don't really see a positive benefit to over drinking or having too much alcohol in our life. And what I liked about the word lifestyle is what I really wanted to mean by saying lifestyle is that this is not just something you do for a 30-day challenge or just something you do short term, but this is something that you incorporate long term into your life. It becomes your new lifestyle. It becomes the new way you show up in your life. So I loved Drink Less Lifestyle. And I'm not about just everybody needs to be abstinent. I think there is room for gray area drinking or people that still want to have a drink now and then. I think there is social connection that comes from that. I think there is a way you can still imbibe and it doesn't have to take a direct hit on your self-confidence, your health, as long as it's kept in a certain quantity. So I love to Drink Less Lifestyle. But then I was thinking, I really felt that I wanted to make a bigger change and change the name of the podcast to what it is now, Health, Habits, and Epic Living. Because when we focus just on drinking, we could get siloed in our thinking, right? We can become just thinking about, the drink. And what I find for some people, and what I found for myself, is the more I focused on what I couldn't have, the more I wanted it. And so it made sense to me to rename the podcast to Health, Habits, and Epic Living because essentially by living a drink less lifestyle, you are developing greater health, better habits, and more epically living, meaning you are embodying you and there's not much that's holding you back, meaning a hangover that's holding you back or avoiding conversations because you keep drinking because it's so uncomfortable to have a difficult conversation. Because if you just had that one difficult conversation and said what you wanted to say, your life would change, overnight. It could from that difficult conversation that you may be avoiding. And alcohol just doesn't allow us to access our emotions, right? It kind of numbs them. It kind of dilutes the negative emotions. So we really get in this place where we're not taking action and we're tolerating that thorn that's in our side, right? We're tolerating that pain and we're allowing it to be there. So it just felt like, oh my gosh, when you drink less, you open up this whole new world, a whole new world of better health, a whole new world of better habits, and a whole new world of better living. And so I loved that aspect of drinking less. And that's why I changed the name of the podcast. Because yes, it's centered solely, mainly around drinking, not solely, mainly around drinking. But this could apply to many things that we overdo in life. It could apply to pornography. It can apply to gambling. It can apply to overworking, as I've used many examples, and overeating. And so all of these things that we do too much of something that is jeopardizing our health, that we are making more of it into a habit instead of less of a habit, and it's actually detracting from our life. These are the things we really want to be on the lookout for so that we can curtail them, so that we continue to build the habits and the health that we really want that make our life more epic. There's nobody who has an illness, particularly a chronic illness, that doesn't wish they didn't have it, right? You really take for granted your health when you're young, or when you have your health. But when your health starts to fail or chronic conditions start to come into your life, that's when it becomes really important, right? Or more important. And I find that a lot of people will then have that time to make a change because I notice I'm heading down the direction of a chronic illness, or I have a chronic illness. And now what can I do to make sure it doesn't get worse? Or is there anything I can do to prevent it from continuing on or even reverse it? And so, coming back to what James Clear says, you do not rise to the level of your goals. Yes, we all want to be healthy. Yes, we all want to be the most epic versions of ourselves. So, we don't always rise to that because we fall to the level of our systems. And so, I'm going to dive into that a little bit more on this podcast. So, thinking about that, our systems that we fall to, right? So, if we don't have good systems, good habits, good routines in place, it's very easy to just fall off. Very easy to say it's too difficult. Very easy to say, well, I haven't gotten that structure in place. So I keep noticing, I keep failing, or keep trying again and not making enough progress. So I really love that quote. And so one of the things that makes us successful when we're setting up our habits and being the CEO of our habits, like that's really what I want for you. That's what I want for me, is really to be the CEO, really in the driver's seat of our habits. For so long, I didn't feel in the driver's seat of my drinking. It felt like it was something I just did. It was on autopilot. It kind of took over at that 5 o'clock-ish hour. And there I was off running with the drink in my hand and not knowing I had the power within me to change that. I was trying different strategies and I was keep finding myself not being successful at it long term. And that's when I was like, this feels like a habit. And really by researching that, all the information there is on habits out there, looking at alcohol as a disease, yes, I understand that, but that didn't give me the exact tools that I wanted and the exact apps. I tried some of the drinking apps, and yes, they were beneficial again for a short period of time. And I love that they're available and I love all the work that they're doing. But it wasn't until I really understood the habit cycle and how to break that and then how to institute different habits that I really understood that this is not a short-term thing. I'm in it for the long term. And even if I go slow at first, as long as I know that I'm going to keep tracking my progress and getting compounding results, I know I would be successful. And when I started doing it this way, as many of you have told me, when you listen to the podcast, you get help on your drinking just by listening to the podcast. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so appreciative that you've gotten that result. But it's really these tools that you implement that get you the slow change, right? You're drinking less. Maybe you're drinking 25% less or 50% less. And then you continue to build on that and you continue to build on that. And there's where I found my journey was exactly that. By starting with a little less and a little less and a little less and a little less. And, now to the point where I hardly want it. I really hardly want it. And it's just amazing to me how the brain changes when we do things from a thought perspective, from a mindset perspective. Our mindset can really change. Changing your behavior without changing your mindset, I oftentimes see people just keep relapsing or keep falling back and keep falling back. And because they keep thinking the same way about the alcohol or about the food or about the sugar or about overworking, whatever their vice, if you will, call it that, whatever their vice is, if they're not changing their perspective on that, if they're not getting that mindset shift, if they're not doing that inner work, I find that you can't sustain the behavioral change long term. And so that's why I think for this podcast, I really wanted to talk about this habit change, what it takes, where to start, how to get started. If maybe this is one of the first podcasts you're listening to and you haven't had all the knowledge and the tools that I've given on other podcasts yet, but really diving into this and saying, okay, if now I'm really committed to doing this, what are the steps I need to take? So to be the CEO, you first need to recognize what it is you want, right? And I think that part is really important. So You get to decide what habits you want. You do. The alcohol is not going to be there if you don't want it to be there. The alcohol is not going to jump out of the fridge and pour itself into a glass, right? Unless you command it to, right? Unless you go to it and initiate. So just knowing that you are in the driver's seat, you are the powerful one, you are the one that gets to be intentional with your choices, I think makes such a huge, huge impact and really motivates people. You know, when somebody tells me I'm powerless or I need to do this, this, and this because, you can't be trusted or you can't seem to do it on your own. Now, I get it, you may need help, but to be empowered along the way fuels transformation quicker. And we all know this, right? If you reprimand a child, when you tell them they can't do something, right, they might sulk for days. But if you come alongside them and you encourage them and help be their helper to get what they actually want, they're going to transform so much quicker. They're going to change so much quicker. So really, when you're setting out to do a new habit, I want you to really be intentional about what it is that you want. Okay. Key words in that sentence are be intentional with what you want, not what society wants, not what other people tell you, right? Because if we get told by other people, that may not be what we want. For instance, if I told my doctor about my drinking habit, I'm pretty sure they would say, Sherry, you need to cut it out. I didn't want to cut it out completely in the beginning. That was absolutely terrifying for me and absolutely demotivating for me. And I didn't want my lifestyle to change that significantly, not in the beginning. So other people's projection of where I should be didn't align with what I wanted. So I really encourage all my clients, what do you want? What is the habit you want to start working on? And is it for you? And if it is for you and you say it out loud, it should fill you up with good feelings. Like when I would say, I want to be a woman who can take it or leave it with my drinking, like joy just spreads across my face. My body lights up. Like I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want. You got that? Tell me how to get it because I am all ears, all in, 100%. That is exactly what I wanted. And thankfully, I found somebody who came alongside me, lifted me up, and walked me through that process. And I offer that for others, right? Like knowing what you want is phenomenal. It's the first part of setting a habit. What we often do is we look to others, right? For direction, for what they want, for their input. And that's nice. And I'm not saying not to do that, but it's really helpful when you know exactly what you want. And if you don't know exactly what you want, tease it out, right? Tease it out with a coach, tease it out with some of that inner work and these questions that I'll be asking you on this podcast. Like really tease it out for yourself so you can really connect with it. A lot of times we make a goal and it's just like sitting on like a pedestal and we don't really connect with it. Like we don't really see ourselves getting it. We just think it's a nice goal and it should motivate us and we should want that, but we may not. Just like if my doctor told me you should give up alcohol in one ear and out the other, I should want to give it up, but that's not where I'm at. That's not where I was at that point in time. So we can have these awful lofty goals that other people put in our heads or that we think we should do, but notice if they resonate with the vibration of energy in your body. If they feel like shoulds, like, somebody who's not exercising at all, and they go to their doctor and they say, oh, the guidelines say you should exercise 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Okay. Somebody who's not moving at all, that is very difficult. That is not easy. The body will be sore and you'll probably give up. rather than what kind of exercise, if any, do you feel like doing right now? How often would you feel like doing it? I mean, Peter Attia does this amazing podcast that I just listened to last week. He talks about how to implement exercise if you're over 50. That was a phenomenal podcast. Recommend you listen to it if, you want to get more exercise into your regimen, and particularly if you're over 50. He gives excellent advice. And he does start out by saying, "Look, my goal is not to make you an athlete in a month or two. My goal is just to get you enjoying it." Right? Just like James Clear says, if you find it enjoyable, if you find it satisfying, you are more likely to keep doing it. And that's the goal, right? We want to keep doing it. We want to not have this do like a short burst of exercise and then we're on the couch and injured, particularly above 50, right? We got to worry about injury and going too hard, pushing it too fast, doing too much, being too sore, all the reasons that a lot of us give up. But really taking it slow so it becomes a lifestyle, so it becomes a change that you make permanently. I think that's super important. And I love that this brilliant man, who knows all the data and he's an exercise enthusiast himself, really meets people where they're at. Because recognizing that you just give boilerplate blanketed statement to everybody, it's not going to resonate with everybody. So knowing where you are at and what you're willing to do is more beneficial than giving you a perfect plan and telling you how it should look and what you should be doing. Because anytime we use those shoulds, notice that energy it brings up in your body. I know when I should on myself, it doesn't feel good. You should be going to the gym today. You should be going to the gym. You should be drinking less. You should be like, none of that felt motivating. None of that felt like I really wanted to commit to it. It felt very intimidating and it felt very judgmental. So when you are embarking on a habit, decide what you want, not what others want, not what society says you should do, but really what you want and where you want to start. What does that look like for you? So what habit do you want to build first, right? And I really suggest getting very crystal clear on the one habit, and then you can work on the next habit once you got the first one down. And maybe if you want to do 2, okay, but not more than 2 when you start, because the brain, when it gets distracted, it loses focus, it loses concentration, it loses attention. And then all of a sudden, everything tries to get prioritized in your life. And guess what? When everything is prioritized, nothing is prioritized. And nothing gets done, and we get totally distracted and absent-minded, and we work on something for 10 minutes and then jump to the next thing for 10 minutes and jump to the next thing for 10 minutes, right? That shiny object syndrome, it just doesn't work. So when deciding on a habit you want to really focus on, pick one, focus on it, and do that, get good at that, and then you can start on the next one. All right, so being intentional about what you want, I think, is a key place to start. Next, after you know what you want, and when you say it out loud, I want to be a woman who can take it or leave it. And if that brings a smile to your face, if that feels joy in your body, if that feels warm emotions going on, you've landed on a good one, right? If it's bringing up negativity, if it's bringing up shame, right? Really look at that and see if there's a different way you can phrase it that doesn't bring up any negative emotions. Next, you want to start to expand that. So I'm going to call it expand your awareness. So now that you can take that habit and match it to a value, a core value you have. So one of my core values is to optimize my health. I don't want average health. That's not interesting to me. I want optimal health in what I'm willing to do, right? The caveat, I'm not willing to be a super athlete at this point in my life, right? So where I'm willing to do and be optimal. And for me, a lot of that comes down to my blood work, right? I really want optimal labs. I want to know that my fluids in my body, my motor oil that I'm running on, my fuel is really optimal. And so when something is a bit off track, gosh, that motivates me in a good way. I'm like, ooh, I don't like that. I want that in the optimal range. So that's what works for me. You got to find what works for you, but then you want to connect that habit to a value. So a core value I have, as I mentioned, is health. So if I can link drinking less to my health, that is a dynamic connection for me. When I look at, when I drink less, I get greater self-confidence. I decrease the amount of fat in my liver because we all know that if you drink a lot, your liver becomes fat. It's called alcoholic fatty liver disease, right? And you can see that in your, again, blood chemistries, which is great that I love to get those tested and stay on top of things, right? Just to know how my body's responding. So we also get decreased belly bloat, right? We all feel like a belly bloat after we drink too much. As I mentioned, no self-loathing the next day. I'm not beating myself up. I'm not hanging my head in shame. I'm not embarrassed to take out my recyclables and hear cling, 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 cling because of all the bottles that are, I think everybody else is like, oh my gosh, you must have a drinking when they could be water or Pellegrino or something else. But in my mind, it's like head is, low because of the shame. But I don't have that, obviously, if I'm drinking less. So all these health benefits, and there's so many more, the mitochondria damage, the brain fog, the low energy, the low motivation. Like when I would drink, I would just want to sit around. I really wouldn't want to exercise that night or the next day. It's like you have that hangover effect from the alcohol that just makes you sedate, chill out, and you just keep wanting to chill out. You want to hit snooze the next day. I would feel dehydrated. I'd have the brain fog. Like I thought about all the health ramifications that would benefit, all these things that would go away and how much my health would benefit and blossom when I drank less. So tying that, what you want, that habit, to exactly a value, a core value you have. Maybe a core value you have is integrity. That when you say you're going to do something, you show up and do it, right? That's like increasing self-trust because that's your integrity. You show up for other people, but do you show up for yourself? So that could be looking at that core value, and that will increase your desire to get this habit, to keep working towards this habit. Because no matter how easy it is to get this habit, it still requires work, right? We know that. There's still effort to be involved, no matter how hard or how easy, doesn't matter. There's still effort. So I just like to say there's going to be some effort to putting in a new habit because my brain's going to have to work at it because it's not on autopilot right now, right? That's the definition of a habit. If it was already on autopilot, I wouldn't have to work at it. Like I don't have to work at my drinking now, right? It's just on autopilot, which is wonderful. And my brain's like losing desire for it as months go by. It's like, I really prefer life without it now. So it's so amazing to see that your brain clicks and clicks and clicks and clicks and still takes, by efforting and putting in the effort, your brain changes, your perspective changes. So what value does this habit link to? That's an excellent question to ask yourself as you're wanting to do a new habit. What value does this habit link to? Now, there's a quote by Susan David that I really find meaningful in doing habit work. So she talks about how successful change usually emerges from internal aspiration, not external pressure. So there's this push-pull strategy in psychology, and I think I've talked about this on a previous podcast called the avoid theory or the approach theory, right? So it's push-pull. So when you're trying to avoid something, you don't want to do it. You kind of just push it away. And that is like an external pressure. An internal motivation or having an internal aspiration to do a habit is when you're having this pull, like I'm being pulled towards the gym. I'm being pulled to do this habit. And that's going to lead to change quicker. And that's what people in the habit space and in the psychology space says that leads to behavior transformation quicker, is if you are internally motivated versus externally having pressure. So going back to my example with the doctor, right? If a doctor says you should give up drinking, that's going to be external pressure. Rather than me saying, oh, I want to be a woman who can take it or leave it with alcohol. Like that was motivating. And that came from within. And those were the words that my brain and my body connected with, right? Because my brain would say it, my mouth would say it, and then my body would light up, right? There'd be a smile on my face and I'd be like, yes, that's exactly what I want. And that's becoming internally motivated. So when you can become internally motivated and not require external pressure, that's where the magic is. That's when your habit can start clicking, and taking on a faster approach to change. So I also put it this way too when I'm coaching clients. If I hear them saying I have to or I should, I know that they are coming at it from they're trying to push themselves along the way. And a push strategy is okay, but it's not as effective as a pull strategy where you can change it up to say, I want this. I want to do this. I want a slimmer waistline. I want my clothes to fit looser or better. I want to change my body composition. I want to lose this weight. I want to be a woman who doesn't need alcohol to relax, right? All of these wants. If you come at it from that way, oh my gosh, that's where the magic is. And that's where it starts to really change your brain chemistry as well. And that's when you start to see things differently. When you say I have to or I should, it's like shaming yourself, guilting yourself. And that's where change becomes more difficult and less easy. All right, so doing this exercise, you really want to think about all the ways that you are going to benefit, right? And how this value is being met by this new habit. So another principle underneath this part is what I want to mention is that when you have this pull strategy and you're saying you want to do these things, have some grace with yourself. It's not about following a perfectionistic plan. In fact, I'll probably get into that in the next section where I've talked about this also on the podcast in the past, is if we make this perfect plan and think we are going to do it perfectly to get the quickest results as we can, to really commit and go all in, that can be exasperating, right? What's better is to do things that are doable. Make it doable, right? That comes from James Clear's book as well. Is you want to make these action steps that you're going to be taking doable. And so don't be in a hurry to get to the goal. Know that the goal is yours and you're going to be just efforting along the way to get there. This ties right into the third thing I want to cover on this podcast, which is focus your attention on actions that make the most impact for you. So we have what we want to do. We have the habit. We have now the habit linked to a value system and talking about all the ways this would make our life better, how we want it, how this feels good to have it, how we can even visualize. Once I'm a woman who takes it or leave it, how does she act when she goes out with these groups of friends? How does she act when she shows up on date night? How does she act on a Friday night where there might not be drinking involved? Like, what does she do? How does she act, right? So visualizing that is so helpful. And then the last part, which we're covering, is talking about the focused actions that move the needle for you. Now, this is an individualized approach, right? Because now we're saying for you. So this is where you take that blanketed statement that everybody says, like things like just move more and eat less. That might work for some people, but that's not going to work for everybody. So you want to look at the focused actions you're going to be taking that work for you. And how do you know? Because you've probably tried things in the past. Some of them have worked and some of them haven't. Or maybe sometimes you've done it and it's worked and sometimes you've done it and it hasn't worked. Well, let's investigate it again. If it's at least worked in the past, it's worth investigating that strategy again and seeing, is this action going to give me the results I want? Because I see what many people do is they just follow the diet plan their friend went on. They just buy the latest gadget on the internet that has these promises and they start doing it and realizing they're not getting those promises, right? So we want to know when we're taking the action that it's going to be beneficial for us, for our body. And that's why I love individualizing plans when I'm working with my clients, like in Tone in 10. We are learning exactly what works for you. And if there's something that you tried and it doesn't work, we want to know. And when something is moving the needle tremendously, we want to do more of that. So these focused actions, right? These actions that actually move the needle. I don't want you doing 10 different actions if half of them aren't working for you. If you feel too stressed out and you can't lose weight now because you're too stressed out thinking I have to do all these 10 things every single day. No, that's going to backfire. That's not going to be helpful. Let's find the thing that's really working. Let's pay attention to that. Let's amplify that. And then we can add in, as long as your stress level doesn't go up, because we all know stress impedes fat loss. It doesn't allow fat to be removed from the body. So we really want to pay attention to the body. We really want to know what's working for the body. It's not just what's working for the mind. Now we're focused really like the mind-body connection, just like we were, like I said, when you link your habit to your value. Your body language should come alive. And if it's not the right energy that's going to pull you into your future. It's not the right energy that's going to give you the fuel that you're looking for. And I'm not talking just about motivation. I'm talking about overall fuel to actually do the thing you need to do. And that could be commitment. That could be determination. That could be I'm showing up today because I want this for me. So when you think about taking action that's going to work for you, here's steps you need to do. It's not just to take like spaghetti and throw it at the wall and try all these things, and then the spaghetti just falls off the wall. And we're like, none of it worked. No, we need to make a plan and we need to track. Yes, we need to monitor. We need to track. We need to understand, is this working? If you throw 10 things at the wall, how will we know which one is working? So I really love to test these individually because then we're going to really know, and we can know just in a matter of days. We don't have to wait months and months, right? We can know in a matter of days if something is working. So when we're looking at making a plan, we want to know when we put that plan together, here's what I talked about earlier, is if it's the perfect plan and we're doing 10 things all the time and we're going to follow it to a T and we're thinking in ourselves, we're not going to fail, right? We could be setting ourselves up for failure. We can be putting on this perfect plan. It's all or nothing. I'm 100% in, meaning that I'm going to do every single thing. And there's 10 items each day that you're going to do. It's just going to not be sustainable. I bet that you'd become overwhelmed. I bet maybe you do that meal plan, the exercise plan, get enough sleep, the hydration, right? All the things all at once. Your brain's going to be overwhelmed, and probably in a couple of days, you're going to shut down and say, that's too much. I can't do this. That's why I love Tone in 10. We're taking one habit 1 week, and we're just focusing on one thing each week. And then if you're ready, and you'll know you're ready because I walk you through exactly how to know you're ready, you add on the second week. And when you're ready, you add on the next thing. And we're building habits because it's habits over time, the actions that we repeatedly do over time that give us results, right? So the perfect plan doesn't get you anywhere if you don't follow it. The perfect meal plan doesn't get you anywhere if you don't eat it. If you don't stick to it, it's not going to get you the results that you want. So instead of overwhelming your brain and thinking it needs to be perfect, we're going to just take it and break it down step by step. And when we get the first step right, and that's down, and that's pretty much in almost dry concrete, maybe it's a little liquid, but it's pretty set, then we can add on the next thing. And that's what I really love, because then it's doable. Then our brain finds it easy. Then our brain doesn't feel overwhelmed. Then our brain feels good because like, oh yeah, I did this one change all week. Yeah, I'm ready for more. Right? That's a different energy when you're going after something. And that's the energy that leads to lasting change. Otherwise, if you throw too much, it's paralyzing for a lot of people. They may be able to carry it out for a day or two, but then they get exhausted and it just feels like too much and life gets in the way and things happen and then they give up. So let's say you want to do the habit of starting an exercise plan, right? Please don't put down you're going to exercise 5 days a week, 2 arm days, 2 leg days, and a hit exercise in between, right? Because if you haven't been exercising and you go that aggressive, not only may you injure yourself, but you're not adding any days for recovery for your body. And your body just won't be able to do that if it's been in this sedentary state for a long time. So we want to make sure that we're practical, we're smart about it, and that it's doable. And that's where I find that having a tribe around you, having a coach with you, that's why personal trainers are so effective. Not only are they your accountability partner, but they're also people that are like, okay, they can tailor the regimens, the workouts, everything that you're doing to how you're feeling that day. It's real time. And that's why I love coaching so much, is coming alongside women and saying, okay, where are you at? Where are we getting wins? What's feeling difficult? And we may need to modify. And giving yourself permission, right? Sometimes we look to others to give us that permission, and that's okay. Make sure you just have somebody who's going to give you that permission and that level of support. And don't be, evil to yourself in that time. You may need to pivot, and pivoting could be what keeps you going, what keeps you following that new habit. All right, my friends. So I think it's very important to do this last strategy and track. Is it working? Is what I'm doing giving me results? How do I feel? Do I feel tired? Do I feel sluggish? Do I feel overwhelmed? Is this really working for me? Because when we don't measure, when we don't track, we won't really learn. That's why I love reflection so much, is looking back on the week and saying, what worked? Where did I feel amazing? And is there anything I can tweak in the upcoming week so I can continue to still feel amazing? And is there anything I need to let go of because it's not feeling amazing or good in my body right now? And when we can fine tune that and keep adjusting and keep pivoting, that's the secret sauce to life. And that's what's really going to make this and sustain this as a routine and a set of actions that we continuously, repeatedly do. And it's who we become. What we do is who we become, is how we show up in the world. And it makes us so proud when we do that hard work for ourselves, when we invest in the effort that it's required to do the things that keep us healthy, that keep us fit, that keep us strong, that keep us energized, that keep us functioning as best as our bodies can in this phase of our life. All right, my friend, that's what I have for you today. Love being with you. Thank you again for being with me on this journey of this podcast journey, and I will see you next week.